$100 million. That was his net worth when he died. In 1877, when the entire U.S. federal budget was $300 million. One man held a third of the government's spending power in his personal bank account. He quit school at 11. He started with a $100 loan from his mother. He couldn't read properly until he was a teenager. And he died the richest man in America. Not by inheritance, not by luck, but by building the most ruthless transportation empire the world had ever seen. This is the playbook of the Commodore. Cornelius Vanderbilt is born in 1794 on Staten Island, New York. His family is Dutch, poor, uneducated, unremarkable. His father runs a small ferry operation in New York Harbor, hauling cargo on a flat-bottomed boat. Young Cornelius is big for his age, foul-mouthed, and violent. He gets into fistfights with grown men on the waterfront. He has no interest in school. He quits at 11 to work on his father's boat full-time. But he's watching. He's learning how the harbor works, who pays, who gets paid, where the margins are, who's wasting money. At 16, he goes to his mother with a proposition. "Lend me $100 to buy my own boat." She agrees, on one condition: clear and plow an 8-acre field before his birthday. He does it. He gets the boat. Within a year, he's the most reliable ferryman in New York Harbor. He runs in storms when every other captain stays docked. He undercuts on price and makes it up on volume. By 19, he's paid back his mother and has $9,000 in savings. A fortune for a teenager in 1813. He doesn't spend it. He doesn't celebrate. He reinvests every cent. The other ferry operators think he's insane. He's not. He's just getting started. Lesson 1. Undercut until they pay you to stop. In 1818, Vanderbilt does something nobody expects. He's 24, already the most successful independent ferry operator in New York, and he sells every boat he owns. All of them. He takes a job working for someone else. The someone is Thomas Gibbons, a steamboat owner locked in a legal war with the most powerful monopoly in America. The state of New York has granted Aaron Ogden an exclusive license to operate steamboats on the Hudson River. It is illegal to compete with him. Gibbons doesn't care. Neither does Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt captains Gibbons's steamboat on the illegal New York route. He's arrested repeatedly. He evades the authorities. He hides below deck when marshals board. He docks at obscure landings. He keeps running. Meanwhile, the legal case, Gibbons versus Ogden, climbs all the way to the Supreme Court. In 1824, Chief Justice John Marshall rules in their favor. States cannot grant monopolies on interstate waterways. The decision blows open American commerce. Vanderbilt has learned his first playbook move. When you face a monopoly, don't lobby. Don't negotiate. Undercut them on price until they bleed. Charge less, run more frequently, offer better service. And when they can't take the losses anymore, they'll pay you to go away. This is exactly what happens. Again and again, established operators pay Vanderbilt cash bonuses, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, just to stop competing on their routes. He takes the money, moves to a new route, and does it again. He doesn't want to run one route forever. He wants to extract maximum value from every fight. Lesson 2. Bet on the new technology before anyone else. By 1829, Vanderbilt has $40,000 in savings and a decade of steamboat experience. He launches his own shipping line. Within a few years, he's running routes up and down the East Coast. New York to Philadelphia, New York to Providence, New York to Albany. His boats are faster, cleaner, and cheaper than the competition. Then, in 1849, gold is discovered in California. The entire country loses its mind. Tens of thousands of people need to get from the East Coast to San Francisco. The standard route? Sail all the way around South America. 15,000 miles, 6 months at sea. Vanderbilt looks at a map and sees what nobody else sees. Nicaragua, a river, a lake, and a 12-mile land crossing that cuts the journey to 5,000 miles and 5 weeks. He doesn't wait for permission. He goes to Nicaragua personally, negotiates a transit concession with the government, and builds the accessory transit company. The fares on the Panama route are $600. Vanderbilt charges $400, then $300, then $150. He's moving 8,000 passengers a month. He's making $1 million a year in pure profit in the 1850s. But here's the real lesson. Vanderbilt doesn't just bet on gold rush demand. He bets on the underlying shift. The world is getting smaller, and whoever controls the fastest route wins. When everyone else is fighting over the destination, Vanderbilt owns the road. Lesson 3. Turn crisis into acquisition. By the late 1850s, Vanderbilt is worth $11 million, the largest personal fortune in America. He's 60 years old. Most men of his era would retire. Vanderbilt looks at the next revolution and sees railroads. The timing is perfect because railroads are a disaster. Overbuilt, overleveraged, badly managed. The Panic of 1857 has crushed stock prices. The New York and Harlem Railroad, a critical line connecting Lower Manhattan to the mainland, is trading at pennies. Wall Street thinks it's junk. Vanderbilt starts buying. Quietly at first, then aggressively. He gains control of the Harlem Railroad, then the Hudson River Railroad, then the New York Central, the most important rail line in America, connecting New York City to Buffalo and the Great Lakes. Here's what's brilliant. He doesn't just buy railroads, he fixes them. He consolidates overlapping routes. He replaces iron rails with steel. He builds Grand Central Depot, the largest train station in the world, at the terminus in Manhattan. He turns garbage into gold. Every crash is a clearance sale. When the Panic of 1873 devastates the railroad industry, Vanderbilt keeps buying while everyone else is selling. His philosophy is simple. Assets are worth what they produce, not what the market says today. If the fundamentals are sound, the price is irrelevant. Warren Buffett would later call this value investing. Vanderbilt was doing it 50 years before Benjamin Graham was born. Lesson 4. Control the choke point, not the cargo. Vanderbilt never cared about what was being shipped. He didn't care about oil, steel, grain, or passengers as products. He cared about one thing: the bottleneck. In shipping, the bottleneck was the fastest route. In railroads, the bottleneck was the terminal, the point where every line had to converge. That's why he built Grand Central. Every railroad coming into New York City had to pass through his station. He set the terms. He set the prices. He decided who got access. This is the same insight Rockefeller used with refineries, Carnegie used with vertical integration, and Morgan used with capital. But Vanderbilt figured it out first, decades before any of them. When Jay Gould and Jim Fisk tried to compete with him on the Erie Railroad, manipulating stock, bribing legislators, printing illegal shares, Vanderbilt didn't panic. He simply refused to connect their line to his network. No connection to New York Central meant no access to the most valuable market in America. Gould and Fisk had a railroad to nowhere. The Commodore understood something that most businessmen miss. You don't need to own everything. You need to own the one thing that everything else depends on. Control the choke point, and the entire system pays you rent. Lesson 5. Make your enemies fund your empire. Vanderbilt's most elegant move was turning competition into revenue, before he even won. In the 1830s, he ran his steamships against the Hudson River Association monopoly. He charged passengers nothing, zero fare. He made his money from the food and drinks sold on board, while the monopoly bled cash trying to match his prices. When they couldn't take the losses, they offered him $100,000 and a yearly stipend of $5,000 to stop competing on the Hudson. He took the money. Then he moved to the Long Island Sound route and did it again. Another payout, another exit, another route. Later, with railroads, he refined the tactic. When he wanted to acquire the New York Central, he didn't make an offer. He simply stopped connecting his Harlem and Hudson River lines to Central's network during the winter of 1867. Passengers and freight couldn't get into Manhattan. Central's stock collapsed. Then he bought it, at a fraction of its value. He weaponized his infrastructure. His competitors' desperation became his acquisition budget. Every dollar they lost fighting him was a dollar less he'd have to pay when he came to buy them. Gentlemen, you have undertaken to cheat me. I won't sue you, for the law is too slow. I'll ruin you. That wasn't a threat. It was a business model. The Commodore dies on January 4th, 1877. His net worth, $100 million, more than the U.S. Treasury holds. He leaves 95% of it to his son William, who doubles it to $200 million in 8 years. So far, so good. Then the dynasty collapses. William's children inherit the money but not the instinct. They build mansions. The Biltmore estate costs $300 million in today's money. They race yachts. They throw parties that last for days. Cornelius Vanderbilt III brags that he's the first heir to decrease the family fortune. By 1973, less than a century after the Commodore's death, 120 Vanderbilt descendants gather for a family reunion at Vanderbilt University. Not one of them is a millionaire. The largest personal fortune in 19th century America evaporated in 3 generations. The lesson isn't about spending. It's about what Vanderbilt built versus what he passed on. He passed on money. He didn't pass on the mindset, the hunger, the strategic thinking, the willingness to sleep on a boat deck in a storm to earn a customer. You can inherit a fortune. You cannot inherit the instinct that created it. So what do you take from the Commodore? Amazon doesn't make most of its money from selling products. It makes it from AWS, the infrastructure everyone else depends on. That's the choke point. Uber didn't own any cars. Airbnb didn't own any houses. They owned the route, the platform between supply and demand. Vanderbilt invented this playbook in 1830 with steamboats. And the dynasty lesson? Look at any family office, any generational wealth plan. The ones that survive are the ones that pass on the operating system, the decision-making framework, not just the capital. The Vanderbilt fortune didn't fail because the heirs were stupid. It failed because no one taught them how the Commodore actually thought. A $100 loan, a 16-year-old with no education, and the most ruthless instinct in American business history. That's the Commodore's playbook, Empire Playbook, where history's most ruthless operators become your business education. If you want the playbook that built Standard Oil, Carnegie Steel, or the House of Morgan, they're all here. Subscribe. The next empire is waiting.